Well, I'm Skip Marquard and native of the area. I was born in Carmel in the old community hospital in 1938, and I'm a member of a third generation development real estate family that my grandmother was born on top of Mount Toro, and grandfather came down from Georgetown after the earthquake in 1906. He was the only non-Italian working for APG and any at the Bank of Italy, which of course is now the Bank of America. And there's different stories about how he met my grandmother, but anyway, they helped develop Maple Park and Salinas, and he had various businesses, and they wanted a summer home in Carmel Valley, and they wanted to buy a small plot of land from Marion Hollins, who had purchased 700 acres from the late S.F.B. Morris, or specifically the Pebble Beach Company, Del Monte Properties. And Marion knew my grandfather through golf. They both played at the Monterey Peninsula Country Club, and said, well, Frank, I'd love to sell you the site, but I'm going to have to sell you the entire 700 acres. So they developed that into Robles del Rio, and they built the lodge, and they had a little golf course up there, which is now a permanent open space meadow. So in my early years, we spent time there at Robles Lodge, and then after the war, my uncle, after he came back from flying in World War II, became partners with my mother, and they started developing all the area that runs from Laurel Drive all the way almost to Bernardus, up to the top of the mountains on the north side, and then on the south side, Garces Road in that area, and then later they did the Brookdale Drive area, and they owned all the land that makes up now September Ranch, but only developed the part on the other side of the road, and then started Rancho Tierra Grande in the 1960s, and I came in 1963 and was involved in the latter stages of that, and then we went on to develop other developments. Sleepy Hollow, just a couple miles out and east of the village, and PM Ranch is a 400-acre tract of land that we purchased from the late Charles Russell, and I got involved with marketing stone pine for the family estate, and we did a little development for the late Bill Garland of Garland Park fame down just down below my office, which is at Carmel Valley and Veranda Roads, and so I've had kind of a dual career of both real estate brokerage, which I've been involved in for 48 years, and also on the development side. Well, I think one of the things that I have felt very good about in the case of the Carmel Valley is, I think from a development standpoint, the valley has fared pretty well, and I think a lot of the earlier developers, I think, kind of had a good vision and wanted the larger lot developments. I know that my family had that philosophy. Robles was a different concept because it was done in the 20s, and it was more of a summer cabin area, but I think after the war, the developments the family did were larger lot development. I think they wanted to kind of retain the semi-rural feeling of Carmel Valley. So when Carmel Valley Master Plan actually came about, and zoning came about in the 50s, the tone had been pretty well established, and there were other developers that had that philosophy. The late Alan Griffin of Monterey Herald fame did a beautiful development off Laurelis Grade, Miramonte area, and that was a large lot development. And so I think that was always the philosophy. So of course, when the zoning came, it reflected, those objectives to kind of retain a semi-rural feeling. And I think that for the most part, I think, as I travel around and look at other areas of the state and other areas of the country, I think Carmel Valley's fared quite well. And of course, we've got a very large park component now in the valley with Garland Park and the Con Ranch addition, and areas that I used to hike and ride in as a kid. And of course, in those cases, I was either doing it with permission or I was trespassing. Of course, now those are all parklands. So I think, that's really been a great addition to the valley. Well, we can talk a little bit about stone pine. Of course, that was owned by Helen Crocker Potter Russell, and that was actually California's first thoroughbred farm. And she was President Eisenhower's ambassadors to India. And when she passed on, she left it to her son, Charles Russell, and he was also interested in racehorsing. He was the two-time president of the California Thoroughbred Association, and maintained the thoroughbred operation and the horse racing, and that was really one of the great estates, early estates in Carmel Valley, which of course now is Stone Pine Resort. When I was a youngster, of course, I can remember the artichoke fields at the mouth of the valley, and then that kind of turned into the pear orchards, and that was a major factor in Carmel Valley before I was born. And of course, after the war, the valley started to transition more into a full-time residential and resort community. And of course, some of the historic properties, like Los Orioles Lodge, was the home of Muriel Vanderbilt. She was also owned racehorses and had them there, and she had a track up near San Jose. And of course, right after the war, that was part of my family's purchases, and sold it to a gentleman who converted it into Los Orioles Lodge. In fact, if you looked at the main room block building, still has the stable doors, the Dutch doors. And there's a lot of historic photographs when you go into the lodge, of that era. And of course, there was the Carmel Valley Inn, which is now Bernardus Lodge, and of course the Robles Lodge, which unfortunately, of course, was shut down and tragically burned last summer. And so those were some of the, and of course the later developments in the resort industry, of course, were Quail, and then of course Carmel Valley Ranch. The things that are very special about Carmel Valley, of course, are its semi-rural character, and of course the physical beauty of the valley, and of course the superb Mediterranean climate. And I think that all the recreational opportunities, all the hiking and riding that we have, and the opportunity for photography, I think it's just stunningly beautiful, livable area.